Hello everyone, welcome to the Breeders' Cup. Breeders' Cup 2022 is here at Keeneland Racecourse in the United States of America. Once again, I'm joined by Peter Fornatale to give you our 5 best bets each for Breeders' Cup 2022. And I tell you what, Peter, if they go as well as they've done in the past, well, anyway, let's not go there. But we're all looking forward to a reminder that as far as the research is concerned for Breeders' Cup, make sure you go to the At The Races website. There is a mega site there bringing you all the news, all the race cards and all the information that you need to try and find a few winners yourself. Also, Friday and Saturday, all the races live on Sky Sports Racing, the place to watch Breeders' Cup 2022. Peter, let's get into this track first of all, because most people will say in most races, if you're drawn 3 to 8, that's ideal. But particularly in the sprints and the juvenile sprints, etc., where we've got horses like Highfield Princess, who's going for the older horses, and then, you know, those youngsters, is a high draw. Let's take the Platinum Queen, who's drawn out wide. Is that bad or is that okay?
I don't like it for her at all.
Right.
And part of that has to do with her own quirks and the fact that she's gone left in the running of her races before. Seems like one that would have been really helped by an inside draw, get that running rail to help her along. From out there, I'm not saying she can't win. She's so talented, she still could. But I'm going to need a much bigger price to bet her than if she was drawn, like you said, 3 to 8, which I would consider ideal.
And also, the other way, though, Pogo gets stall 1. He's a natural front runner. You would say, oh, that's sent from heaven. However, 99.9% of Europeans just fractionally miss the break, and sometimes a lot more than that. Stall 1 presumably then immediately turns into a nightmare.
It's exactly right, because if you have the real gate speed, that's exactly where you want to be. But in a race like this, where you're going to have smooth like straight going right to the rail, presumably in there as well, if you break half a step slow, the game plan could be out the window, and I do not like that draw. It's easier for them to be in the middle if you're going to have an issue with getting out of the gate, because at least you have some time to recover and get your position going forward.
Bends are tight here. It's a bit like Chester. However, it's not like Delmar.
It's definitely a little bit wider than Delmar. I say definitely. In my perception, it is.
Feels it.
But you need to be a handy runner on all of these USA race courses. I do worry about some of the bigger, more galloping Europeans when they come over here.
And Peter, I was lucky enough to be here. I'm sure you were as well when American Pharaoh won. And it was a horrible week weather-wise. I remember freezing in the morning, like hardly being able to hold the microphone. It was that cold. People have talked about the ground a lot. The ground is one of the most important factors in finding a winner. It looks very settled from now to Breeders' Cup finish. I don't think we're going to get any more rain, are we?
The forecast, and you know, like horse players and pundits, occasionally they're wrong when it comes to predicting the weather.
As we're about to find out.
But it looks to me like we're going to have something on the order of good to firm ground on Saturday and Sunday. I mean, unseasonably warm temperatures predicted, and I think that's, you know, very good news for horses coming here wanting the firm ground, which of course a lot of the English and Irish horses, that's one of the reasons they get sent here, is because they want the better ground, and it looks like that's exactly what we'll have.
Always love doing these previews with Peter, because he takes what everyone sees as normality and then takes something outside of the box, and you're going to see that straight away where we get onto our first big selection out of the 5 that we're each going to have. And I have no idea where you have found this horse, Peter. But Peter's first selection as a horse to wager at Breeders' Cup, you won't even believe it, you probably don't even know he's running, is Flightline in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Peter, how did you pick that out?
The old fastest horse in the race angle. In all seriousness, though, I do believe this is a banker type horse where I just don't see him losing. Not only do I see him winning, I see him winning by a distance in this race. I think he's just a different class than the others. And keep your eye on the markets for this race. Best price available now is about 1 to 2. That's really what should be the price. But I wouldn't be surprised if the morning line maker's guess, my friend Nick Tamaro, is correct, and you see something more on the order of 3 to 5, 4 to 5. It's a big race. People want to be wise guys. They want to be contrarian. This is not a horse to be opposing. Let's leave it at that for now.
Okay, you say that. I'm going to play slightly devil's advocate here straight away. He has one magnificent performance ahead of all the others. Obviously, he's unbeaten in 5 so far, and he's always been an odds-on favourite. But if that wasn't the norm and that was the exception, then this is a deep enough classic that he is going to have to bring that ego.
There's some very talented horses and some improving 3-year-olds who on the numbers can maybe get within a pole of him. But the thing that I love about this horse is the way he's matured throughout the season. I just have no reason to believe that the last race in the Pacific Classic wasn't a proper representative effort. He showed such toughness in the New York race too, where he had a very difficult trip. Didn't matter at all. He just ticks all the boxes for me, and I really think he's a horse that's going to put on a show here on Saturday night.
I've taken the mix slightly, but unfortunately, I am as useless as you are with my first selection for inspiration, because I am going to the turf sprint, and you may have heard a horse out there, everyone, called Golden Pal, and he is my first. Mind you, he's going to be slightly bigger odds. He'll probably be more about somewhere between 6-4 and 7-4, I'd imagine, come race time. Quite simply, I think this is a deep race from the Europeans' point of view, but I don't know if people will go into the form enough. Like Naval, Crown, Creative Force for me are better at 6, maybe even 7. And obviously then we bring Highfield Princess Hair, who's on this magnificent role. Everyone wants her to win. It's just one of the best stories in any period of racing history. A horse to go from 50s, a mark of 50, to being possibly a Breeders' Cup winner is unbelievable. It's never happened before. It will probably never happen again. But, and this is the big but, in the first 5 strides, she's not going to know what's hit her. Because the bell's going to go off. She's going to go, where am I? Where am I? Where's John Quinn? Where's Johnny Quinn? So she's going to go crazy. She's going to miss the break. She's going to be, therefore, at least a length to 2 lengths behind Golden Pal after a few yards. I know Golden Pal did miss the break a little bit himself recently, but he doesn't usually. The extra half a furlong, I guess, gives her a chance if Golden Pal goes too hard or gets taken on. But in all reality, and don't get me wrong here, Golden Pal is actually not one of my favourite horses, and I've taken him on many a time. But I think in this race, he'll just skip clear.
I always get Golden Pal wrong. It's amazing.
Yeah.
When I'm with him, something unfortunate happens, like Irad looking the wrong way at Ascot, and when I've opposed him, he's made me look very silly. I think the fact of the matter is he seems like a better horse here in Kentucky, and his bid for history to win a 3 Breeders' Cups in a row is something I'm very excited about and looking forward to seeing. Whether or not he's a backable price, we'll find out on the day, but he's certainly one of the great stories. That race has so many great storylines.
Final quick question on Flightline. Do you think this could be one of those races where people put the dollar on just to keep the ticket and frame it?
We really
is he that big, do you think?
We've only seen that in the States with Triple Crown horses in the past, or at least I've only heard of it with that. But I'll tell you what, for a real racing fan, I think that would make a heck of a souvenir with the win picture up there. I don't mind the idea at all.
When you have 2, and I use this term, of course, broadly, racing experts, giving you selections, what you don't want is for them to nap in the same race. So let's go to the Juvenile Fillies turf, where Peter Fornatale and myself will be napping in the same race. So tell me why you have selected Spirit Gal.
I think, in part, she's an interesting pace play on the stretch out with the quickness that she's shown in her races. And I also think she's improving. I think she's going to be a massive price. Last year in this race, we saw Cachet take them a long way and get tired and at a big price. That could well happen again. But I think there's an opportunity she could stick around and really shake up the odds board. She's out there at some very big prices right now and goes with a chance. I love Meditate in the race, but that price was wrong last week, but it's corrected now. If you're looking to get into the market now and want to get a little bit of value, I'm very intrigued by what we're going to see from Spirit Gal. I've sensed from your tone you might be a little skeptical of my pick in this race, though.
Well, I'm just having a look online at the moment as I speak to you, hence why I was looking down there, Pete, and in various places you get about 16 to 1 Spirit Girl. My selection, you can get 20 to 1. And I genuinely believe that people have completely messed up with that. I think 20 to 1 is a ridiculous price for this horse. I haven't even given the name yet. And considering my record in recent times with 20 to 1 winners, thank you to Gold Trip in the Melbourne Cup, incidentally. I don't think there's many of you out there that don't know I tipped that. I'm hoping for Be Your Best. Now, Be Your Best clearly started in tremendous fashion, winning 2 races, and then came to Belmont at the Big A against Pleasant Passage and Free Look, and was a strong favourite for that race and came up slightly short in 3rd. But I felt the horse was given a little bit, well, always prominent, but but was still given a little bit to chase the winners. And I felt could have been ridden slightly more aggressively earlier. Was keeping on well at the deaths. Clearly stays very strongly. And this is a race, clearly I suspect like yourself, that I want to take on Meditate. You know, I'm not even convinced that the Meditate Tahir form is as amazing as it looked at the time when Tahir looked just an absolute machine over in Ireland. So a little bit each way for me on Be Your Best. Tell me whether you believe I've got any chance whatsoever.
Well, there's no equity in this life knocking 20-to-1 shots, right? So I'll start by saying that. But I mean, I think you make a compelling case, and I think there's a chance it could be a chaos race where you want to be at the higher end of the odds spectrum. So yeah, I wouldn't talk anybody off really too much in that race. I think it's interesting, and I do, for the record, think that Meditate has a chance to prove herself, and I do like her quite a bit. It's just one of those things for me where the price has just gone.
I had an interesting chat with Mark Cassie, and we were just saying that as turf racing becomes bigger in the US, the gulf between Europe, back in the day, the old cliche, oh, we'll win all the turf races, they'll win the dirt races. But on the turf side of things, I think that gulf has just closed a tiny little bit.
I would tend to agree with you, and I think the U.S. has chances this year in some races that are traditionally won by the other team. One that I didn't put on the list, so I'll just mention quickly in this little aside, is Annapolis. A horse like that in the mile, just coming into form at the right time, appears to be peaking, just looking visually. And I think there's reasons for the U.S. getting better in the turf, not least because of how much more money is being offered for turf races in the U.S. and how many there are, but also very specifically bringing over more English and Irish bloodlines through the international sales that have become very, very popular for a number of horsemen and horsewomen.
And all this brings us on to your third selection, filly and mare turf. Many will think that, you know, the Nashwas of this world or the Tuesdays, etc., above the curves will just take centre stage here in Italian.
In Italian is one that I really, really like. Another who I expect to be on a front-running mission in this race. I don't love the draw. You're gonna have to work a little bit harder to make the lead from out there in the 11 gate, but I still think she has the talent to do it. She's shown toughness. She's very strong on the clock as well. I respect the runners that you mentioned, and I will surely be having some USA-style exotics mixing them in. But in Italian is a key horse for me at this year's Breeders' Cup.
And I want to go back to the juvenile races and the juvenile turf sprint. There's something about Charlie Appleby at the Breeders' Cup. 3 winners last year. He revs them up in whatever way he does rev them up. And Mischief Magic, who is not, I don't think, a worldy juvenile, but is tough, experienced, ran well enough last time. I think he's going to run into the frame at around 7-8 to 1. And if you run into the frame, you have that chance of winning. And I think Mischief, I love Appleby, these Godolphin horses at the Breeders' Cup.
He's been unbelievable, not just at the Breeders' Cup, but in North America as a whole. These horses are coming here, and they all seem to be running. And I think you are putting yourself in wagering peril to take too many of them on. And obviously, we'll have a line on Friday of how their form is looking. If they run like I think they're going to run, I'm going to probably end up upgrading his runners on Saturday as well.
So I like where you're going also in the turf mile, Peter, because again, people will look at the Europeans and just go, they'll go and win this. And you've got something slightly out of the ballpark.
Yeah, I mentioned Annapolis before in this race, but the horse I'm actually picking is at a much bigger price. He ran second in this race last year. I think Smooth Like Straight is going to get an absolutely perfect trip. I think he can hang around. He's a horse to use in USA-style exotics, and if everything breaks just right, he might be able to win. And last I looked at the prices, he was something on the order of 33 to 1. That's simply too big for a horse who's proven that he can compete at this level.
Okay, so back home at the Cheltenham Festival, a lot of horses come back each year, particularly in the past, actually, because it was about the only time in the season they'd get certain conditions, i.e. big field, strong gallop, and they loved it. Is there a theory at Breeders' Cups that the only time in a year where you get Europeans and the American horses mixing, that the slight style of the race might be ideal for a horse like this?
I think because...
Or am I trying to be too clever here?
The problem is the courses are so different and the conditions are so different.
Okay, just say no, Pete.
But I will, to your point, say I think it's one of the reasons, in addition to probably a little bit of inherent superiority, some of the English and Irish runners have done so well, getting the kind of paces that allow late kicking horses to really be shown to their best effect. So I think there's something to what you're saying, but I'd say it's more from an English and Irish perspective than for the USA runners.
You're being polite. Thank you, Peter. Right, I'm going to go to my fourth selection, and this is about as obvious as Flightline and Golden Bough. Jackie's Warrior in the sprint. Quite simply, I spoke to Steve Asmussen at the draw, and I said to him, you know, if Jackie's Warrior didn't end up a Breeders' Cup winner, the horse would be one of the best horses not to have won here. Quite simply, this horse deserves it for me.
I think that's right, and he got huge news in his favor with Jack Christopher not competing. That was going to be the main market rival, and also a horse that was going to make his job a little bit more difficult. I haven't made a selection in this race just yet, but he's very, very difficult to stand in the way of. I may land with you.
Yeah.
We'll row in together.
Final selection time, and I like this because it will be a race that not everyone at home knows everything about, the Distaff. Who is going to be best of the females?
So in all the analysis I've been seeing and reading, people are talking about this like it's a match race between the two Todd Pletcher runners who are certainly deserving at the top of the market, Nest and Malathaat. But one race ago for Clairiere, it was widely considered that she had improved past where Malathaat was. Now, granted, she had a very bad race at Saratoga. Apparently, there was an issue with her biting her tongue. She had a big cut. She didn't show her form at all. They decided to train up to this race, and the training, from what I've seen, has been going extremely well for Clairiere. And I just feel like she's the forgotten horse. This is not, even Todd Pletcher said himself, this is a talented field. This is not a two-horse race. I think the other horse to bring into your reckoning of this race is Clairiere.
Clairiere, then, in the Distaff for Peter Fornatale. And the moment you've been waiting for, my fifth selection will be Nation's Pride in the Breeders' Cup Turf. Now, in the build-up, and obviously things might change by the time you watch this, but in the build-up, Rebel's Romance has been favoured over Nation's Pride, even though William Buick rides Nation's Pride. That immediately sparks to me that people are insane and bookmakers are just stupid, because... Are you really saying that Charlie Apple is going to put his stable rider on his worst horse in the race, i.e., not the market leader? So I think they've just got it wrong. I think Nation's Pride should be favourite and isn't favourite, and it's almost just on that pulls me to the horse. The other obvious advantage is this was one time a leading fancy for the Derby at Epsom. Didn't come up to scratch there, although wasn't totally disgraced. But since then has been out here stateside and looks to be the type of horse that just seems to love stateside racing. And when you put all that together and you're not with the favourite and it has a stable companion who's favourite, I've got to go with Nation's Pride.
I get it, and I'm still a little bit undecided in this one. I keep going back and forth, but
it's a tough race.
Buick choosing Nation's Pride is huge to me, and the fact that he's proven under the USA conditions, and also apparently looking very well in his flesh since his arrival. He's one I'm going to be keeping a close eye on this week. I think the market might flip those by the time we get to the race, because what you're saying is exactly right. It's just too logical to me that he'd be favored over Rebel's Romance.
Final question, Peter. Of your big price selections, the best each way is?
The first thing that popped in my head is Smooth Like Straight, and it's mostly just because that price is so big. I just feel like that's out of whack, and you're going to get some line value there. Spirit Gal's, maybe you could argue, a little bit more of a chance to get cooked and run out, where I really think we're going to get a representative effort from Smooth Like Straight, and he'll be there on the wire. Smooth
Like Straight, then, for Peter Fornatale in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I'm going to stick with that Juvenile Be Your Best, who just isn't a 20-to-1 shot. Look, might finish 4th, 5th or 6th or something and still run well, but at 20-to-1, we can take the chance. So I really hope you've enjoyed this preview of our 5 best selections for Breeders' Cup 2022. And just a final reminder, the At The Races website, as always, is magnificent. It's even better when the mega site is up and running for the Breeders' Cup. So please go there and join us for Breeders' Cup 2022 on Sky Sports Racing on the channel for Fridays and Saturday's big races. Indeed, every race from here at Keeneland.